Tonight on Undercurrents, selling the census, how the federal government markets your information. Why not get their permission? Say, is it okay?
We're not in the business of getting consent on an individual basis.
Media makeovers, the delicate art of being taken seriously.
It's a look, babe.
Hi, I'm Wendy Mesley, and this is Undercurrents. Forms everywhere, but only one that every Canadian must fill out, the census from Statistics Canada. The statisticians in Ottawa don't stop there. They do surveys, too, hungry for all our stats. Where does that information end up? We think you'll be surprised. Dr. Scott Cornell might not look like your typical West Coast protester, but he became one the day the government came to his door.
They were from Statistics Canada, and we had been selected to do a survey, the Family Expenditure Survey, and made it quite clear that this was something that we were going to have to participate in.
It was January 1997, and Statistics Canada wanted to come into his home and ask Cornell and his wife over 640 questions they were required by law to answer.
I was dumbfounded. The detail of the survey and the questions that they ask, they go through essentially every spending item that you could possibly have done in the past year. And, you know, what did you spend on toothpaste and toothbrushes and condoms and syringes if you happen to be ill? What did you spend on toilet paper in the year? What did you spend on beer in the year? The second part that really bothered me about the survey was there's 5 or 6 pages at the end of it in which they ask for a detailed history of all of your incomes.
So why does the government need all this information?
This particular survey has actually one important purpose, which is to help us build the Consumer Price Index.
In all, StatsCan conducts 173 annual surveys, and all but 4 of those are mandatory. And then there's the census, which every household has to fill out every 5 years.
Good morning, my name's Ann Boytler. I work with Statistics Canada, and I'm here to drop off your 1996 census questionnaire.
1 in 5 Canadians has to fill out the long-form census with 55 questions on everything from ancestry, income, whether you rent or own a home, how many bedrooms you have, and what your mortgage payments are.
We go out of our way to reassure them that the data are confidential, because we need people to be confident in Statistics Canada.
But how confident would people be if they knew it's not just the government that has its hands on this information, that StatsCan sells virtually everything it collects about you except your name and exact address. And businesses love it. It's the kind of comprehensive personal data they can't get anywhere else. And StatsCan knows it. Check out their marketing brochures. You pick the target group, says one, and we'll provide the demographic profile. You can link, pinpoint, and identify with all of these census variables: ethnic groups, language groups, high-income earners, single parents, and then there's the information from your income tax returns.
This is information that's extracted from the tax files.
From Revenue Canada?
From Revenue Canada, and they give you some idea of how much people are contributing to their RSPs, what kind of investment income people are reporting, and again, it's useful for marketing purposes.
Scott Cornell got upset at the nosy questions. He got more upset when he discovered the survey answers would be sold.
I would assume that the only information that a country would seek that is so important that they take away my right to refuse is information which is purely of use to the government. And if you look at the breadth of the surveys that they do, it makes you wonder just who guides the questions.
We don't ask any questions that we don't need to know the answers to.
Mike Sheridan is the number 2 guy at StatsCan. He's in charge of over 40 different household surveys. This is the 96 Family Expenditure, now called the Household Spending Survey. There's a lot of questions about what people spend their money on, and one is the rental of pre-recorded videotapes and video discs. Why do you need to know that?
That's a service-based industry that those activities are now part of the pricing basket in the Consumer Price Index.
So this question on videotapes is not asked so that you can turn around and sell it to people in that industry?
No.
Because I was just wondering, because in your own brochures, like here's one here, a customized snapshot of the household spending numbers. It says, do you really know your customers? Learn how to, or see how to select mailing lists targeted to your market. And then it uses as an example videotape and video disc renters and the average spending on rentals, the rented video. It gives all the stats. And you're advertising that you can provide this information.
Sure. This agency is responsive to all data users who require information, be they private sector or be they public sector.
Why should the private sector have an input?
Well, the private sector are one of the key users of census data. They make business decisions using Statistics Canada data and information.
So would they
every
help
day.
design questions or
Well,
have input?
certainly there are concerns in terms of content for the surveys are taken into account. Absolutely.
We start with the census, and it's a very rich source, and we purchase the census from Statistics Canada.
Businesses can buy information directly from StatsCan or come to intermediaries like Jan Kessel at CompuSearch, StatsCan's biggest corporate client. Kessel's specialty is data mining for businesses.
For every neighborhood in Canada, we would take basic census demographics.
And when she buys census and survey information from StatsCan, it's already broken down into 45,000 neighborhoods as small as 125 homes. StatsCan has presented these neighborhoods in map form, so you can instantly see the income level, age groups, how people get to work, all the characteristics of each neighborhood. Kessel's clients love it.
People say, oh, I see what you're saying. There's my locations, there's my customers. I see a lot of people who are, traveling all the way from up here over to here. Maybe I should put a store there. So a lot of people are very visual.
Kessel starts with the StatsCan data and then adds information from 40 other databases, such as
NADBank, the organization that monitors newspaper readership, MarketFacts, the Flow of Funds survey, the AC Nielsen home scan information. There's a whole panel of Canadians who scan their grocery order. We have summaries of vehicle registration information, Print Measurement Bureau. We buy data from the provincial registrars.
CompuSearch's clients include car companies, almost all the banks, and most of the national retail chains. Kessel helps them zero in on new customers through a system called clustering.
For every neighborhood in Canada, we would take basic census demographics and then summaries of vehicle statistics and summaries of magazine subscriptions. So we have a whole lot of information about a neighborhood, and then we use very sophisticated software, neural nets, artificial intelligence.
Excuse me? What's that?
I can't give you the full description of it, but modern categorization, sorting, data mining tools to divide those 45,000 neighborhoods into maybe 50, 60, 70 groups. They've got to be something that a marketer can work with. Then we have the fun. Then we have a bunch of people who sit around and name them, and we come up with names like Canadian Establishment, the Affluentials, Mortgaged in Suburbia, Boomers and Teens, Suburban Nesters. So the data itself drives the classification scheme.
So how well do they get to know us? We gave CompuSearch your postal code and asked them to figure out what cluster you were in, and you came up as a suburban executive.
Interesting.
So let's see how well this fits. It says, your cluster says that you're university educated.
Correct.
Professional.
Correct.
Middle-aged or older.
Correct.
You live in a new, large, single detached home.
New, maybe not, but remodeled.
You're white.
I am.
You were born in Canada.
I was.
You're married.
I am.
You make over $100,000 a year. You don't have to answer. You moved in the last 5 years.
We did.
You go to football games, the ballet, and movies, mainly dramas.
No.
You eat at high-quality restaurants and at private clubs.
No.
So they get, what, about 75%,
About
80%?
75%.
The more information I give you, the closer it is possible to assign that information to individuals.
Privacy advocate Richard Rosenberg worries marketers are getting closer to putting names to StatsCan information.
I think what's happening now with the ability to do enormous computations with large amounts of data and large computer systems, it's possible to maintain simultaneously that you're not releasing unique identifiable information, but with other information added into the picture, you can almost uniquely identify people.
One of the objectives in targeting is to get a better bang for your buck.
Kessel shows how her cluster system can help a jewelry store owner put his flyers on the right doorstep.
he's going to distribute pieces to people about an event in his store. And the first thing he's going to do is he's going to look at people who make greater than 50,000 income. And then instead of doing the whole radius, he's just down to those red areas. But where it really gets effective is when he combines the income with the clusters. So in this case, this high income postal area up here is our urban gentry cluster. You can see this sketch of kind of townhouse, fairly modern, upscale couples who own sailboats, drink scotch, attend the ballet and classical concert, would subscribe to Aerosmith and Saturday Night. And then on the other hand, down here, we've got another 50,000 income neighborhood, but it's a very different income neighborhood. It's kindergarten boom. We're spending money on video games, driving vans, subscribing to Chatelaine and TV. So if you just go in by income, you could send your pieces to both those neighborhoods. But if you look at the cluster profile of who's more likely to be a customer for a higher-end jewelry store, you'll see our previous cluster group, the one up here, is more likely to respond.
So if you lived in this cluster, you'd get mail from the jeweler. And it might not even look like junk mail. Have you noticed the envelopes usually don't say Dear Householder anymore? They have not just your address, but your name. So where do marketers get that final piece of the puzzle? Well, they could come here, a company like Desktop Mapping Technologies in Markham, Ontario.
Hello. Hi, we're here to see John Fisher.
They use satellite technology to pinpoint individual houses. Then they get the names by simply buying the assessment rules for all properties in Ontario. So now, if you pay Desktop Mapping $6,000, they'll tell you not just the names in every house in, say, Toronto, but also what each house is worth. For another fee, they can add on from the files they bought from StatsCan what the household income is likely to be and what ethnic group they're likely to belong to. They have clients like the banks who use Desktop Mapping coupled with StatsCan information like income levels to decide where to close a branch and put in an automatic teller.
Hi, CBC is here.
Desktop Mapping were all lined up to show us what they do until suddenly, an hour before the interview, Vice President Dave Roach left us a message wanting to cancel.
Did you get a message?
We just on the road, but what's the problem?
We're just concerned at the angle that the show is taking, so we'd just rather not participate right now.
But you were so keen this morning.
Yes.
What happened?
We just won't comment any more on that.
Well, did StatsCan scare you off? We know you had a meeting with them.
They weren't here this morning, yeah.
Did they tell you not to talk to us?
No. So that's all we'll have to say right now, thanks.
They need your census information and your survey information. Do you not see yourself as facilitating the whole direct mail customer profiling business?
We see ourselves as facilitating, in a very broad context, a response to an information need that has been expressed by businesses and the business community, and are absolutely confident that within the bounds of doing that, we are not compromising anybody's individual confidentiality.
Why not get people's permission for selling the information before you get it from them?
The people's permission to sell aggregate information?
Yeah, it's still their information.
Once it's aggregated, is it?
Isn't it?
I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
But why not tell people that their information is
We do tell people their information is sold. If you look at the
Well, here's the survey that went out in 1996, Survey of Family Expenditures. Where does it tell people that it can be sold to business?
When the interviewer goes to the dwelling, the interviewer explains the use of this survey, and she has a set of pre-scripted information that tells how these data are used and who they will be used by.
Well, I've read a lot of your documents, and it says interested parties, concerned parties, and it mentions government, provincial, non-government organization, business, communal groups, blah, blah, blah. That's a lot different than telling people that that banks and insurance companies and pharmaceuticals will be paying tens of thousands of dollars to get customized information from the government that'll narrow it down to as small as 200 or 300 households. You don't tell people that.
Sure we do. The confidentiality provisions of the Act are specified in the Census Guide. There's 32 pages of information on how the data is used, and included in that process is a very good description of how aggregate data are disseminated by the agency and for what purposes.
And do you think most Canadians know that? Most Canadians, when they fill out the census, do you think they know that?
And right in that guide, it says that these data will be used to help organizations and businesses determine and look at their markets.
But why not ask people? Why not get their permission? Say, is it okay if we turn around and sell this? Sign here. Why not get their consent?
We're not in the business of getting consent on an individual basis.
Scott Cornell and the 10,000 other households who were targeted for that household survey had no choice. Answer the questions or risk going to jail or a $500 fine.
To me, there's a conflict. There's a potential of conflict in there for people who force me to give information and then say, oh, I can sell that information as well. They could force me to give virtually any information.
We disagree with Dr. Cornell.
Obviously, but why?
Well, because the Act does not separate and bring that wisdom to say that we will permit this information to be given to determine where soup kitchens should go, but we will not release this information to determine what kind of soup a particular food chain can sell. It is just not.
But they don't want to
within
just.
bounds.
They don't want to just choose what kind of soup. They want to get something on my doorstep with my name on it that's targeted directly at me, and you're helping them.
They want to get something into your hands as a potential market.
Right. But I haven't given you permission to contribute to that process.
We can't collect the data and not release it.
But you don't have to sell it. You don't have to ask them what
don't-
kind of questions that they
We
want.
don't sell the data. We don't sell the data. We recover the cost for producing that information, that specific set of tailor-made information.
Why not give me the option of ticking off a box on a form which says, I don't want you to sell it, as I would like to be able to tick off the box on all my commercial transactions. So if someone wants to use information about me, I want them to ask me and get my permission. If not, you can't have it.
Scott Cornell never filled out the survey, and he never went to jail. And the following year, StatsCan made that survey voluntary and reduced the number of questions. Cornell said no back in '97, but 99% of the others did what StatsCan required.
Many of them had filled out the survey and then phoned us afterwards saying now that they knew that we were protesting it, they were somewhat ashamed that they had gone ahead and filled it out, but they felt threatened.
What would happen if people started saying no?
If people start saying no, then our surveys would definitely be in difficulty.
You're not the only one asking them questions anymore, though. Are you getting a sense that people are saying, they're tired of the phone calls?
I think that people do see us as different from just any survey company or any telemarketing firm. They know Statistics Canada name. And so we've up to now been had very good response rates, and we hope that doesn't change.
We all like to look our best for the camera. In the media world, that leads to some interesting transformations, says Andrew Younghusband.
This is a shot of me on Undercurrents from 4.5 years ago, back when I thought that working in the media would really only be a momentary flash in the pan for me. And this is a shot of me doing the exact same kind of work just a few months ago. I cleaned up my look, not because I enjoy being all spit and polished, but because I begrudgingly realized that if I tuck in my shirt and expose my eyes, people take me seriously. Whenever anyone gets thrust into the media spotlight for whatever reason, they soon fall into one of two categories. First, there are the people who intentionally change their look.
I don't give a
Like Courtney Love,
Fewer of them would end up.
Preston Manning,
There's no deal whatsoever.
There he is, Jesse, the movie star. That's exactly right.
and Jesse Ventura.
First official act, there you go.
And second, there are people who intentionally don't change their look. People like Michael Moore. And the Unabomber. While both categories of people react totally differently to the camera, the reason for their reactions is exactly the same. Hey, look at that one. Like me, they just want to be taken seriously. Take Paula Jones, for example. She went from kinky hair, trashy makeup, and normal facial features to elegant makeup, straight hair, and a nose job. Not to mention a ton of orthodontistry, because that's how you get taken seriously by the American media. On the flip side of that, you've got someone like APEC protest pepper spray victim Jonathan Oppenheim. This is a shot of him before he had attended dozens of press conferences, and this is him after. It's a look, babe. Quite the opposite of Gillian Guess.
Well, the color is called Innocent Red.
Who during her highly publicized obstruction of justice trial would put on or take off anything to try and be taken seriously.
If this brings attention to social injustice, I'll come nude.
Weibo Ludwig, on the other hand, refuses to change for the camera. Here's Weibo before he was charged with mischief and conspiracy. Now the time has passed and he's become more media savvy, he's simply added a gun to the look. And nice lighting. Take that man very seriously. But seriously, have you seen the National Enquirer's makeover darling? Who is this woman? Well, let's go back, okay? A little bit further. Yes!
I'm an average American.
Linda Tripp. A $30,000 reno job, just in time for those courthouse scrums.
Imagine how you would feel.
Everything about the media is so premeditated, and all the people in it spend so much time focusing and nitpicking and fiddling with details that, quite frankly, I just don't trust anybody who pretends not to care about their image.
Hi, J.D. Roberts back with you on Much Music yesterday.
But then again, when it comes to people who have full-blown media makeovers, well, I don't trust them either.
Good evening. Dan is off tonight. I'm John Roberts. President Clinton said...
You think all of this image analysis is a little bit too superficial, do you? Yeah? Well, think again, because news and current affairs is television-driven. And above all else, that means it's visual. The people who make it to the air and then stay on the air are the people who know how to hone their image in such a way that will allow them to get their point across and be taken seriously. Seriously.
Next week on Undercurrents, forget the phrase, it's all in a name. But there's nobody hunting there. There's no guns. Isn't that pretty crucial to who you are?
I think it's kind of like saying, if we're going to advertise for beef, let's show somebody whacking it over the head with a hammer.
That's next week on Undercurrents. I'm Wendy Mesley. Good night.